Hello everyone, welcome back to Inside the Majors. 2026 is well and truly underway in both the MEC and Major Series, with plenty of action having gone on since the last episode. We've had the first round of the Sudspeed Majors Endurance Championship and 2 rounds of the Major Series, so we'll have a quick rundown of how those went here in just a minute. We'll also be catching up with possibly the hottest driver in Majors right now, Austin O'Neill. Austin's raced in all of the rounds in both championships so far this year and featured prominently in all of them in the top splits. So it's going to be great to welcome him back onto the podcast and talk about his early success so far this year. Just before we crack on with the episode, I'd like to remind everybody about the discount code available to Majors members at sudspeed.com. They've recently released some new designs. I've gone for the black and teal Radeon design. Do love me a good split livery, as my teammates can tell you. And the new Ascari red gloves are also sure to be a hit. So go over to sudspeed.com to have a look, and remember to use the code MAJORS on checkout for 10% off. They do ship worldwide for very little additional cost, so if you are in the market for sim racing gloves, socks, or shirts, support the people that support our racing and community here at Majors. Okay, with that, let's load up some results and talk all things Majors. The beginning of the year for Majors was particularly fast starting this year. We had the opening round of the MEC on January 10, followed the very next day with the opening round in all 3 regions of the Major Series. To be honest, it was a little hectic from an admin standpoint, but with so many real-world and sim racing events in January, there really isn't a lot of real estate in terms of hosting events, so we didn't really have much option, to be fair. Anyway, after a week of qualifying for MEC, we had 199 teams and over 500 drivers across 4 splits for the 8 hours of Daytona. A superb start to Season 2 for our Team Endurance Championship. And as far as top split was concerned, things got a little wet pretty early into the race, so much so that we spent almost an hour behind the safety car, with the track being essentially too slippery to race on. Now, whilst I'm sure that was really frustrating for some to cruise around for so long, little did we know how realistic this was ahead of the real-world event 2 weeks later, where they lost almost 6 hours doing the exact same thing behind the safety car due to fog. The rain never really cleared, though, but we did get back to racing, and so the second 2/3 of the race were run in the wet the whole time. But the racing was still close right up until the end, and certainly some entertaining finishes with tiny margins after a full 8 hours of racing in all of the classes. So congratulations to the winners in top split. In GTP, it was defending champions Marshmallow Racing that took the win. And let's be fair, the rain certainly helped their cause, given that Sean Campbell is one of the best wet weather specialists on iRacing. Also well done to the Italian team Tatum ResTech, who were both second and third with 2 of their cars in GTP. In LMP2, it was also a defending champion team that took the top step, with last year's Pro-Am Prototype Division winners Fusion 19 holding off Cronus GG by less than half a second in a nail-biting last few laps of battling. And rounding out the podium in LMP2 was Aerokinetics Red, another returnee team from 2025. In GT3, it was Aerokinetics, without a colour, who were victorious, ahead of Majors Esports Blue. Do they count as a home team? I'm not sure, but well done, guys. Hooray for us. And rounding out the podium was Fusion No Talent number 17. Now, I should also mention that Fusion were the first Pro-Am division car home, and as we will discuss in the second part of the podcast, included amongst its drivers one Mr. Austin O'Neill. In the other splits, the weather was much more kind, with no rain to deal with. Congratulations to all those who had success in those splits, and we hope everybody enjoyed the experience, especially if it was your first time with the Sudspeed MEC. Round 2 in early March will be the 6 hour at Sebring, and I may as well put this out there right now, there will not be any rain. I think we all got wet enough for now from Daytona, so for those of you that are seeking therapy for the PTSD from the rain from there, at least know that we won't be giving you a repeat dose in round 2. So the following day, the Major Series kicked off for the year as well, though each region had a different combination of car and or track to tackle. Now, I will admit that I didn't get to see a lot of these races because I was a bit of a zombie after the MEC, but from what I hear, there was a lot of action. International was first with 3 races around Winton in the TCR cars. Carrying on the theme of last year's champion starting with a win in 2026, defending International Pro champion Ewan Baker took both race 1 and race 2, leading every lap in both those as well. Race 3, which had an inverted top 10 on the grid, was won by Thomas Hinds, no stranger to the Majors Series podium either, who also led all 18 laps of the final race to take the win. European region was also the TCRs, but at Alton Park circuit instead. And just like international, we had a repeat winner for races 1 and 2, with Michael Haflitzen winning the opening sprints. The third race, though, was won by Ed Shelley. And I'd also like to give a shout out to Gary Thomas as the only sports silver driver in any of the TCR races from both regions to feature on the podium in third in that last race in Europe. So congratulations. Finally, for round 1, the Americas region took on the Snowball Derby. Short track racing can be rough and tumble, and when it's in the super late model cars, that is especially the case. And so after a lot of cautions and bent panels, the winner in top split was, and here's that name again, Austin O'Neill. Leading nearly half the laps and heading up a Fusion America's Gold 1-2-3 with Derek Love and Jackson Wade right behind, it was the perfect start to the year for Austin and also for his team. I will give a shout out to fourth place finisher Dallas Pataska, who led the first 100 laps or so of the race, but then found himself buried after a pit stop and couldn't find his way back to the front of the field, but did get back to fourth place. Yeah, well done, Dallas. And so on to round 2, which was last weekend at the time we're recording this, and we all went back to Daytona again, this time for the Intimidator 500 in the next-gen NASCARs. The week leading up to Intimidator is always packed full of intrigue and fun, with all of the methods to lock into top split, with the duels, the daily racing, pre-qualifying, all being separated by thousandths of a second to make top split or not. It's a superb event and always a highlight on the Major Series calendar. And first up, I want to give a general congrats to all the drivers in all splits and regions. Across the 5 splits of the 500, we had 4 of them go more than 25% of the race distance before the first caution, and Split 2 in Americas made it basically 75% of the way through the race before their first caution. So the standard was high, the racing was clean, which we love to see in majors. I think all of the 5 splits had amazing finishes too, with the almost obligatory scramble and chaos through the last lap, and utter mayhem out of turn 4, and across the line repeated in all of them, which as a spectator was so much fun. And so in international, the win went to Ben Doughty, who kept up the theme for 2026 of return winners, going back-to-back in the 500 for international after last year also taking the flag. Little difference this year, Ben only led 1 lap in 2026, and that was the one that mattered. So well done, Ben, on getting a back-to-back win. In the European race, we had what could only be described as an epic conclusion to the race. In his 95th start in the majors, Dog Bear's Jeff Schmeier took only his 2nd ever win, leading home Austin O'Neill, and there's that name again, and Tom Dreiling. Now, the top 3 were separated by 0.021 of a second, and the entire top 10 was absolutely nose to tail and about 5 wide across the line, which was just amazing to watch. In Americas, we had 3 splits that each had their own amazing last lap madness. And if you were not in those races or didn't see the broadcast, check them out because they really are great entertainment over the final laps in all of them, especially if you can get a hold of Split 3 replay. Yeah, that was really cool to see. But in top split, taking the smallest margin of victory across all of the weekend was, and yep, it's that name again, Austin O'Neill. It was a real Lightning McQueen style photo finish with just 10,000ths of a second between Austin and Vincent, and not much more to Ryan Steele in third as well. Congratulations also to the other split winners, Bryce Roberts in split 2, also winning by a bee's dick from Seb Jackson and Jordan Bazugli, and then Brock Hawkins in third split, who took the win after essentially the entire field was caught up in last lap wrecks. There was more than one, and the first car across the line ended up with a penalty, so gave the win to Brock, who managed to get to the line first of all of those, recovering and avoiding the mayhem. Okay, so that was a bit of a whirlwind catch-up of what's gone on since the last podcast episode. All of the broadcasts are available via the Majors YouTube channel, and links are also on the Majors website under the media option on the banner up the top. Next round is the historic IMSA event at Sebring, the first weekend of March, the HPD prototype or old LMP2, and also the GT1 cars of the Aston and the Corvette. All right. We heard his name repeatedly as we went through that roundup, so let's talk to the man himself. Joining me after this will be the most informed driver in majors right now, Austin O'Neill.
Hey, you know that guy who just before the green flag keys up his mic and asks, "Anybody got a setup?" Well, this is him. This is Adam, and hey, Adam needs some help. On the other hand, this guy over here, this is Steve. Steve is a solid racer and he knows his way around the garage. Steve's problem is time. With a job and a family, he can't find enough time to build competitive setups and to race as often as he likes. But as luck would have it, Steve knows a secret. He lets the Majors Garage crew chiefs do the setup work so he can focus on the racing. At majorsgarage.com, Steve can get setups for over 60 cars on the iRacing service. So no matter what series he wants to jump into, he is covered. Anybody really should tell Adam. See you at the garage.
Okay, we have now on the call Austin O'Neill. Austin, welcome back to the podcast for the second time.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Garen. It's been a couple of years since we last talked, and excited to be back.
Now, in the roundup of the events in Major Series and the Sudspeed MEC I've just gone through, your name came up time and time again. 2 wins, 2 podiums already this year. What the heck was in your Christmas dinner?
Man, I don't know. I would have never possibly dreamed at the end of last season to have the start to the year that I've had this year. But it's been pretty special at that. I knew going into the year that I left on a high note and that we would have some momentum going into the year, but you could have never scripted it this way. And just truly grateful for the start of my year and the people that I'm around.
Now, let's talk Sudspeed MEC first. The pre-Q week was amazingly tight and really stressful for everybody that was trying to make it into top split. How was that week for you guys, especially as a Pro-Am team where one of your silver drivers has to count for your average for the splits? How did that week go for you?
Really, it wasn't too stressful for us. We had spent quite a bit of time preparing for Daytona. Just MEC was up first, and then, a week or two after that, it was the actual 24 that iRacing puts on. So we had probably, I don't know, a month, 2 months worth of prep in our back pocket. So we knew what we were up against going into that week. And we knew that if we execute, we'd be in a pretty decent position. We just didn't really know where we would fall. We ran the first season with MEC last year, and we were a second or maybe a third split team all season long. And we got lucky and made top split at the end of last year at Spa and got some confidence in our team. And for us to go put it in top split at a pretty decent position, it kind of shocked us all, and it turned out to be a pretty good event for us. But I do remember back now that I was pretty comfortable on time. I think I was within probably the top 10 of overall single lap times, and then Chris was our second silver driver that needed to post a time, and I think we spent probably the last 2 or 3 sessions on Friday putting times in, and we needed a 10th to make top split. And Chris would go out there and put down 2 solid laps, and then we'd have 1 bad lap and on his final flying lap, and made it a real nail biter for Bryce and I to watch. But he pulled it out on the final session and locked us into top split. But it's wild how you can start the week with pre-Q and feel pretty confident and go smooth for one driver and be rough for another. But I'm just grateful that we all put it together and got us a spot in top split.
With so much of the week getting devoted to qualifying and trying to make it into top split, I know that was the case for a lot of teams. Did you get a chance to actually practice for the race, especially in things like the wet, which was projected, but obviously we didn't know the tsunami that was coming? But did you actually have enough time to practice for what was to come?
Yeah, we had enough time. You mentioned the rain, and we all did, and myself included in that. We had a couple rain sessions, but nothing like we experienced in the race. And I think a lot of people were probably upset with how much we had in the safety car, but I might be the only one, and I might be crazy for saying this, but I loved it. I love rain racing. It really separates skill sets and how people drive it, and it just forces you to adapt every single lap, and it's that constant challenge that I absolutely love. And no, I did not practice in that much water, but the little rain testing that we had definitely helped speed up the general knowledge of the track where some puddles would be and stuff. But nothing could ever prepare you for the river running across the entry to turn 1 from the speedway, and that was ever changing every lap. And I'm still trying to wrap my head around how we were able to pull that race off with that much water at the end, but it was well worth it. It was so much fun.
The long safety car that we had, what were your thoughts around that, running behind the safety car for so long? And who was it that you had in the car at the time, and what did you do to keep them awake?
Well, fortunately for us, being all central time zoners in the United States, it was bin day for us, so we were just enjoying our lunch and having a nice break. But we got lucky right as the rain came down and the pit stops happened. We were ready for a driver swap. So Chris Willard got out of the car. Bryce Roberts was getting in, our other sportsman driver. And he pretty much got the best stint out of the 2 of us. He got the easiest stint riding behind the safety car for a couple of hours. But I thought it was very interesting because you guys have introduced the safety car system in the past year or 2, and that separates you guys from everything else on the service, which is absolutely like a blast to be a part of. But we've never had like running behind the safety car for an extended period of time like that. And even though it took a little bit of the racing away, I still, as a fan and enthusiast of the sport, I thought it was cool to have just a little bit more realism thrown our way because it still did alter our strategies, whether it was a big change or a small change. It was something we had to play with and plan into effect. But yeah, it's not sure if I would want that much rain in that scenario down the road again. But to say I was a part of it was really cool.
As a Pro-Am team coming into the season, what was the ambition for the series as a whole for you as a team? And now that the first round's gone so well, what does that ambition look like now?
Yeah, I don't think we really had too like big of expectations set out for us just because we had, kind of an up and down year last year. We didn't know where we'd fall this year. We had a very good showing at the 6 hours of Road Atlanta in the postseason, and where we picked up the GT3 class win, which built off the confidence from Spa when we made top split and had a decent finish. So we knew that if everything fell our way, we'd be a decent team and have a decent shot. We didn't know if we would be a second split team and be fighting for a top 10 in overall standings, or if we would be lucky to make top split. And, Daytona really showed that we get to places that we know well and have a lot of experience, and really anything for us is possible. So I think here out, just try to build on what we did as a team and see if we can maybe try to wrap up a championship. It's still a long ways away, and I think we got very fortunate with the breaks that we got in that event. But yeah, it definitely changes our mindset. Like I said, we didn't have a lot of expectations going in now, and now we got a little bit of weight on our shoulders to keep the job going forward and try to pull this thing off this year.
So how will Sebring look for you? Is there car choices, do you think, that'll have to be made? Because obviously changing from one model to another is allowed in the MEC. Will there be driver changes for you? Yeah, how's that looking for you guys?
So currently, I don't have a lot of information on that. We haven't got to Sebring prep. I think we're about a month away. So I expect here in the coming days and coming weeks that we'll start getting our ducks in a row and figure out what our game plan is going to be. So I'm not really sure what we're going to do car choice yet and what our driver lineup will look like exactly. It's between the last MEC race, January 10th or so, to now we've had quite a bit going on with the schedule. We had MEC, and then I went and ran Euro and Americas the following day. And then a week or two later, that same team, Bryce, Chris, and myself ran the Daytona 24. And then a week or two later, we just ran the Daytona 500 twice. So it's been pretty busy. And with this race being so far out, it got sat in the back burner a little bit. But I expect here in the coming days, coming weeks, that we'll get an idea going forward. But I love Sebring. Asked me that probably a year ago, I would have told you I hate Sebring. I'd spent quite a bit of time in the past couple of months leading up to the schedule being released and our prep starting that just spent a lot of time there trying to get comfortable there and understand what I needed to do to be fast. And it's definitely now one of my favorite tracks on my list. It'll never beat Road Atlanta though, but it might give it a run for its money one of these days.
Good luck to you and the team for that. But we'll move on to your individual pursuits now that you've had so far this year with the major series. Snowball Derby, a 1, 2, 3 for the team. Tell us about the lead up to that event. Obviously, there must have been quite a lot of work going into setups, and that showed with the amazing result for the team. Give us a rundown on what went into it.
Yeah, so Snowball, anytime I get to talk about Snowball, a smile comes across my face, just how proud I am of the entire Fusion group as a whole, not just the pro team or the sportsman team, but everybody that put in work. I believe we started testing and preparing for that race 1st of December, because a handful of us ran the iRacing special event at Snowball, and we had a pretty okay showing. It was nothing like what we were able to put on during the majors event, but it was just a good go run 300 laps and get some data on our setup. And that really kind of got the ball rolling for the majors race. And backing up a little bit, I didn't know what to expect on the pro side for our Fusion team leaving 25, leading into 26. I was the only driver pretty much on that team. And I can't thank Bryce Roberts enough for recruiting Derek Love and Jackson Wade to join our team. It's been a big honor to have those two with us. I've had plenty of experience with Jackson in the past with sports car racing with our Fusion No Talent teams, but Derek was a new one to our group, and Derek has a wealth of knowledge in oval racing on iRacing, and he's been around it for a long time. Derek and I meshed very well, and we like a lot of the same things, drive the same way. And so he and I spent a good majority of that time between the iRacing special event to the majors one, just grinding out a setup. And we put together a pretty good piece. Derek and I, we knew the car would be good. We knew that we had a shot. We didn't know it would be the way that it actually played out. But it was so cool that race started to play out. I got the lead, I think probably 100 or so laps in, and then Derek comes from like 15th or so up to the top three, and Jackson comes from outside the top 20 of the top three, and then Bryce Roberts and Kevin Heaton and Christy Tito were all out there too. So it was very rewarding for all the work that we put into that. But yeah, I can't help but to smile with joy and pride for what we were able to do during the snowball.
Now, for you personally, you spent a lot of time up front. What goes through your mind in a race that is so stop-start when you are battling for that lead or trying to hold on for a win?
Yeah, it got pretty grueling there for a while because our car it was good on the short run stuff, but it really shined long run pace. So we needed, I don't know, maybe 25 plus laps of consistent laps to get the thing to shine and fall where it was really built to fall or run actually. And yeah, it just could be a little mentally wearing there for a while just because it never get into a rhythm. But for me personally, it was just continue to execute on every restart, put myself in a good position to where I don't really, back myself up to the field and cause myself to be vulnerable. But yeah, it gets tough, but it gets tough for everybody else too. So if you just execute your part of it and do your job, it almost likely work out for you.
Obviously, the setup was good, but would you say short track, that's your thing?
Yes and no. Yes, in the fact of the whole reason why I got into iRacing was because of dirt oval racing. It's what I have a background in. Personally, I've grown up in a racing family. I raced for a handful of years myself, but it was more on the dirt side. So the pavement oval stuff really wasn't like a big part of my life. It was always there, and running the major series for a handful of years now, we have select races on the schedule that shine for the oval stuff, and it's become something that I have a great appreciation for. I've found a lot of success that I feel like so far, and so yes, you can put me in that category of dirt oval and oval kind of being like my bread and butter, like down at the core, that's me. But the very tucked away part that I like to bring out only whenever it's special events like this.
Certainly don't think it's the only talent that you've got, and you've been proving that every time you've been on a track recently. So, okay, moving away from snowball and now to the 500s. Now, you ran in two regions, both European and Americas. Let's talk European first. Pretty much always near the front the whole time, but missed the win by the tiniest of tiniest margins. So how did it feel as the first race that you did to miss it by that much?
It was tough. So I was kicking myself Friday night. So we got to the final pre-Q session on race week, and I had one more try left. I'm like, I don't need to do it. I'm locked in the front row in Euro, and I'm locked in the third pretty much in Americas. But I'm like, I just want to see what I can do. I saw some other times tick down, and I ran the best time I did all week, and it would have put me on the pole, I believe, in all three regions. So I was a little upset with myself leading into race day on Sunday that I should have had the pole in both regions, and I just didn't execute it throughout race week. But I knew that at least having the pole in Euro was an advantage in a way that I could control the pace and control how the race went. And it was a tough pill to swallow at the end of that to lose it by that small of a margin. I look back at the replay and look at things I could have done differently, but when you're going down the backstretch, side by side with a guy to take the lead for the 500. You really aren't thinking about the very small details that could win or cost you the race, but I'm just trying to get back to the line as fast as we could. And I really thought I did win the race because when I crossed the line on the black box, it showed me in first for a moment. So the hopes went up real fast, but came crashing back down. But to even be a part of a finish like that, it's still very cool. I would have been a little salty if I left the Americas race without the win and had the same finish, but I'm glad the Americas could make up for what happened Sunday morning.
A lot of the European drivers don't do a lot of oval racing. Was that noticeable for you in running that region?
I feel like there was a handful you could definitely tell it just wasn't a part of something they do often, but I was pretty shocked about like the majority of the drivers in Euro they, even though it might not be something that they do all the time, they still had a pretty good skill set at it and were doing the right things that you needed to do to put yourself in positions in that race. I'll be honest, my teammate Daniel Thomas almost had a shot at winning that race. And I just remember Daniel mentioning throughout that week, and he even in the race said he's not a noble guy, he's not a super speedway guy, but his racecraft and his ability throughout that run when we were working together, it was like a seasoned veteran pretty much. It was very cool to see how fast some of those guys could adapt to it. But definitely a huge hats off and props to the ones that hopped in there and did it and were pretty dang good at it, even if they had pretty limited experience.
So, moving on to Americas now, you managed to avoid the stress of what was an amazingly tight pre-Q week to make top split for Americas, like thousands between basically the whole field. Tell us a little bit about the relief of locking yourself in so early in the week.
Yeah, it was a huge relief. It was crazy. Like I looked at the first pre-Q time I ran on Saturday, and it would have put me in my like mid-pack a split too. So, going back to your point, it was, I think, the tightest and craziest pre-Q I've ever seen. But the stress it took off of me was huge because it allowed me to go and prioritize our other fusion cars and getting them in a top split throughout the twin race and the duels throughout the week. So, allowing me to have that kind of weight off my shoulders and to go focus on them was huge, and trying to help the ones that are new to speedway racing. But our goal was to get all of our fusion cars and our fusion affiliated cars in the top split. And I think we didn't get all of them. We got a good majority of it, but still the work that we were able to do throughout that week with having me locked in and also having Derek locked in too was very beneficial when we got to the race on Sunday.
Starting at the front in Euro, ran up there for most of it, or certainly what I remember seeing. Americas also started near the front, but didn't quite run the same way. There was plenty that went on for you in Americas. Give us a bit of a rundown of some of the things that you had to overcome to get back to the front.
Yeah, America's was a grind pretty much. I did the Euro race and we fired off, and you could just tell the tempo was kind of chill and everybody was being respectful and just kind of biding their time for a good majority of that race. And we go to the Americas race and the green flag comes out and we're wide open. And it's like we're racing on lap 199 of 200, or that's at least how it felt for me. I was like, oh boy, like, I wasn't ready for the tempo to change that fast. And I had, a group as a whole, had quite a few ups and downs in that race. I was the best starting car up in third. Derek was in the teens. Jackson was around Derek, and then Kevin was back there with him too. And it took us a while to get all linked up together and get to the front and control both lanes. And whenever we had our four cars at the front of the field, life was great, life was easy. And then we just had some moments that slightly self-inflicted moments and broke us up and kind of ruined the party for us. And we spent more time than I think we needed to get back together and work as a team. And it was pretty difficult whenever we did get split up to make things happen, because we just worked so well together, and our car as a whole and our package really relied on other cars to pull us around and get through the field. But I'm just glad that I was able to salvage the race and get a good finish out of it, because I think it was about 20 laps to go. I got into somebody in the three and might have turned them across the whole field and pretty much had a penalty coming my way. And I was so fortunate that it was just more of a racing accident, and I got to keep my spot around the mid-20s. And that last restart, I made the calls right and got up to the lead and got to the point where I needed to be at with just a couple laps to go. But that race could have went so many different ways for me at so many different points. And I got lucky, and I'll take the luck any day of the week.
Can you take us through what's going through your mind on that last lap when you know the win is potentially on again, but as you said when describing the last lap in Euro, you've got no idea what's going on. Your heart rate is going through the roof. You're 3, 4 wide at points. Like, what actually goes through your mind to try and get it done?
Yeah, so the end of that race was pretty, I don't know how difficult was the right word, but I was on my own pretty much. At that point, Derek was crashed out of the event. And I really relied on Derek to make the moves and lead us as a whole through the field. And I believe we had to restart with just a handful of laps to go. The number escapes my mind at the moment. And I was in the top 10. Jackson was my only really close teammate, but he was 10 or so spots behind me. And I didn't know if he would get up to me in time to help us get through the field. And I just was able to get myself in the position on the bottom lane when it took off when it did, and clear the outside lane, and then watch when their run was building. At that point, Jackson has made his way up to the field in the outside lane, and he was the second car in line behind Vincent. And I knew if I could just pull out in front of them at the right time, that Vincent's not going to go anywhere, and Jackson's going to be pushing him. So I'm going to have two cars behind me, and if we kill the bottom line just right when I pull out of line and we get linked up, that we might have something at the very end of this thing. And I was just waiting for Jackson to get to me, and the laps were running out pretty fast. And I think I made the move off of 4 coming to the white. And I didn't know if the run was going to be big enough to get me there. And the white comes out, and I was like, well, it's go time. I got to do something. And luckily, Ryan Steele pulled out and gave, I think, the top lane just a couple more cars in the bottom lane. And I just knew I had to get Ryan out front far enough to where he felt safe getting down to the bottom lane, because I knew I had the 2 cars behind me that were going to push me. So it was just pretty much try to get him to kind of hang himself out to dry, and then just rely on Jackson and Vincent just to get me home. And we got pretty tight at the end, too tight. I wish it was a bigger gap, but yeah, if it wasn't really for Jackson coming through the field, I think I won that race, or have a finish that I do.
Did you actually know you'd won it as you crossed the line? Obviously, you can look at relatives and things, but it was tight.
I don't know. I that whole moment crossing the line is kind of a blur still, because I was frantically like looking in my mirror and looking at my right monitor, trying to beat Vincent to the line. And then as soon as I crossed the line, I was spinning the dial to get to the black box to see if I got it. And then I think Derek had the first reaction, and then my reaction, and everybody else like in the Discord blew up and was excited. If he didn't know by pushing me across the line that I won, he definitely knew by, the uproar that we all had.
So the goal for the year now, coming in, maybe it was different, but you've started with 2 wins. The team's now got a little bit of a lead in the team's championship as well. I'm guessing that the goals might have changed to something a bit more lofty in both of those now for Fusion.
Yeah, last season was the first season that I felt like I pretty much got a full run in and had a decent amount of growth. And I started the year off pretty rough. I'd have 1 good race, 2 bad races, 1 good race, 2 bad. And then it wasn't until the last 4 races of the year that stuff started to pick up for me. And the confidence, like, where I could easily go run with Nathan or Christian or Ross or any of the top dogs that's been around the series for many years. And I knew going into the off season that if I really wanted a shot at this drivers championship and a team championship at that I was going to definitely have to step up my game from last season and just come at this thing like it's a full-time job pretty much. And I made that change throughout the winter personally, and put a ton of time in, as we heard earlier, with snowball testing and then getting a team assembled, that I knew if I just did my job every race and kind of put myself in that position, I could maybe get a win or put myself in a hunt if somebody has a bad day. So to start the year off with 2 wins definitely wasn't expected at all. The confidence going in the season is definitely higher. The expectation there is now to carry this out and run for the championship. Obviously, there's still 10 races left to go in the season, and a lot can happen, and we go to a lot of different disciplines, and the door's wide open still. But I think if I can just still execute and do my job every race, that it'll work out. And if it's my year to win it, it's my year to win it. And if not, then come back next year and try just as hard, if not harder. But what I really didn't expect was our team to work as well as it did, and to have this third that we have, the podium lockout, the snowball, definitely set the tone and the mood for what's to kind of come for us and our expectations as a group. So I definitely can feel the change in tone and how everybody's like speaking and thinking for the next coming races and the rest of the season, that they have that belief that they can have good runs as well and help contribute to a team championship. And they have the belief in themselves that they can go run up there with me and help me get the title as well. To go back to answer your question, I guess I didn't expect any of this to go down the way that it did. I'm just grateful that I have the opportunity to be a part of it, and it's going to be a fun year. It could be very stressful, and I wouldn't expect anything less, but I'm just excited to see what's going to happen between now and in the last race in November.
Well, as Nathan found out last year, with Christian in the field, the Jaws music will start at some point, I'm sure. And so good luck in holding off what I'm sure is to be a challenge from those that are behind at the moment. But congratulations on, in America's, the perfect start to the year across the first two races, and also the other success you've had in the other events around that as well. Also to the Fusion team, which not just in Americas, but in Europe and also in the MEC, has been doing some pretty amazing things to start the year off as well. Yeah, you're in a good place. You've got lots of good people around you, obviously. And yeah, we wish you all the best for the rest of the season. And yeah, we'll be keeping an eye on how it all goes for you here.
Yeah, thank you for having me back on the podcast. I hope we can have a chat a couple more times throughout the year, but it's good to be back on and speak with you. And I can't thank you guys enough for putting on the podcast. I have a great time listening each and every week, and to everybody on the competition committee and the series as a whole. This is, in my book, the best league and series in iRacing with the best drivers on the service. So, to be a part of it, continue to see the excitement, the effort behind everything as a whole is definitely appreciated. And I can't wait to see what's left in store.
If we ever get around to doing the series t-shirts, I think we've got the slogan for the back there. But all right, thanks very much for joining us today on Inside the Majors.
Yeah, thank you. I think I did this with you a long time ago, like a couple years ago.
Yeah, it was when
And,
you were dominating races and then you disappeared.
Yeah, we don't talk about why I disappeared, but yes. It's a touchy subject. It's a long subject, too.
Michael Haflidsson. Right, one of those will be right. I'll cut the right one in. Vincent Leherbier. I think that'll go at the end of the podcast as well.